Hello, and we are back for another special edition of Women's History Month, hashtag Choose to Challenge. I am Luana Bradford, visionary and co-founder of Celebrate You, Women Embracing Wellness, and I am so honored and privileged to have one of my co-founders here to join us for this conversation, Jacqueline Lulu Brown. How's it going, Lulu?
It's going great. And thank you so much for having me today. I'm just excited with everything that is being done with Celebrate You. So I am happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to jump right in.
Mhm.
So, why don't you first tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing with your company, Revolution Ascension, and also your ministry?
Okay. So I'm just going to jump right into it with what we're doing right now. So Revolution Ascension is really focused this year and sort of moving forward with everything we've been through is really focused on the needs of women at a deeper spiritual level. We've been through so much. So there is, when you look at women's empowerment, I'm really focused on women's empowerment from having that authentic, but also going and making sure that we are attending to our spiritual life. So those are a lot of the things that we're working on right now that tie right into ministry. Doing a lot with other ministries around women's empowerment and just keeping women encouraged and keeping us strengthened. And even through the Ascension Academy, we've added a couple of different components that really speak more to, I'm going to say, the heart of the matter and really go deeper so that we are growing not just financially or business wise, but that we're also growing spiritually. And most importantly, that we're also making sure that we are mentally well in the midst of everything that's going on.
That sounds great. And so, with what you're doing with Revolution Ascension, and you're thinking about Women's History Month and the shoulders that we're standing on, as well as the celebration of history in the making. You know, when we look around as women are every day making history. Tell us a little bit about what that means to you and the work that you're doing.
Oh, wow. Luana, it means I just have to tell you, I get so pumped and so exhilarated. So I'm going to try to answer your question in a very sort of calmer manner because this is passion that's near and dear to my heart. So at this particular time, it's important, one, for us to celebrate the things that we've accomplished, but to also celebrate as we're moving forward. Because this is a special time. And what I mean by that is I'm often reminded of the scripture in the book of Esther. And when it was time for her to go before the king, and when Mordecai, who's one of the individuals that is having a conversation with her, he says, who would have known that everything that you have prepared for was for such a time as now? So I'm just going to leave that statement right there. That's what this time means to me, is that we as women, through everything that we have come through and everything that we're still going through right now, it's for such a time as right now. And this is a special period. There is, and again, in my belief, that there is an open portal right now for all women of all races, creeds, and color to come together and to actually move forward. There are some things within our culture that we will do independent to our culture. But then there is also coming together and just moving forward because I really believe that this is a little different than, let's say, where our moms came from and future generations, excuse me, prior generations. But as we move forward with future generations, I believe that this is a very, very special time for us as women to move forward together.
So let's add a little building block to that. So as you said, it's a special time, and this year's hashtag is choose to challenge. And that's to me, it falls right in line with Revolution Ascension. It is a wake up call. It's a rallying cry, if you will. So tell me, what when you hear that, choose to challenge, what does that mean to you? How does it resonate with you?
It resonates with me is to rise up, to not be silent, to challenge the status quo, to use language like, who said that? Why? To question. It was always that way. Who says it has to stay that way? Rise up and challenge what has been done for years and years that doesn't serve us moving forward. Some things just don't serve us the way they did before. So I think we need to challenge the status quo, rise up and not be afraid to come forward with our voice. That's the other piece of it, is challenge with our voice. We have powerful voices. We are powerful beings as women, but our voice can also be very, very powerful. And that choose to challenge, I can say that I choose to challenge what has been. I choose to challenge, why can't we do it differently? I choose to challenge, well, why do we think that the way it was done previously is right? Why not change it? And I think that's important with the millennial women that are coming along um, behind us.
Today, and you hear it even more than before, and it's been around, but the terms diversity and inclusion.
Mhm.
And that whole initiative is to challenge, as you said, the status quo of the old guard, um, that looked a certain way, that did things a certain way, to now open our arms, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, to embrace individuals of different backgrounds, experiences, ethnicities, etc. So when you think about that, and and I'd like you to share a little bit about the travels that you've done
Mhm.
within corporate America. I know you were 30-year IT executive, retired, but when you're thinking about choosing to challenge and that whole diversity wave, diversity and inclusion wave, how has your experience, the world's travels and experience in interfacing with individuals of different cultures prepared you for such a time as this?
Luana, thank you for asking that question. I will tell you, hands down, I would not be prepared if I did not have those opportunities. Those opportunities actually fueled where I am right now to do what it is that I'm doing. And part of what was missing was what you're describing, having a well versed and a well learned experience across cultures. We know that we have a lot of culture here in the US, but we also know that when folks tend to migrate here, sometimes they lose some of their heritage. And many young people that are here may not have the richness of their heritage of where they come from. And traveling the world, I had an opportunity to experience that. And I learned so much. I will tell you that to me, I've had people say, oh, you did such great and wonderful work with the webinars and the seminars that you gave. But I will tell you that I feel that I learned more from the cultures that I traveled to than I gave out, because I went there to learn. I wanted to know more. And I think and I will say one of my favorite places is India. I learned so much from the women there because it's a very diverse cultural from a religious perspective. You have Hindi, you have Sikh, you have you have Muslim. So it is very, very rich. And you also have Christian. It's very rich in its culture around religion. And I learned so very much from the different women. I learned that there is a hierarchy, and I learned how that hierarchy really does matter in a woman's career and how she navigates that. So it wasn't as simple as, well, you just go and you just, blurt out what my belief system is. It was really learning the very complexities around all of the different cultures. And I'm just using India as an example, but all of the different cultures. And then it is now taking that step back and allowing, I say God, someone may say creator, whatever name we call our higher power, but I'll say God. I had to allow God to really take everything that He allowed me to experience and then download. Now, how do I give empowerment to different cultures without them losing who they are in their culture, but really navigating and growing? So there's an empowerment piece, but there's also knowing and understanding the culture that you're speaking with and that you are attempting to empower. So it was just tremendous, Luana, going to Germany, going to Israel, parts of the UK. You just learn so much. And India and over into Dubai, there is just a totally different culture. And knowing the ins and the outs and respecting that and not trying to go and give what we believe and force it on somebody, but taking all of the good and the empowerment that we've learned and grown from, but teaching them how to incorporate it, but yet remain true to their culture. That's the authentic piece.
I love what you said there, because when we're thinking about diversity and inclusion, it's not so much, yeah, you're accepting and you're becoming a part of a greater whole, but it's not assimilating to the point that you lose who you are. Like you said, it's a framework of accepting. It's a framework of allowing, and
Mm,
that's a mindset shift that needs to happen. It's
yes.
a paradigm shift. So many people feel that when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, it's like, okay, it's the check mark, right? I have so many of this race, or this gender, and it's so much bigger and deeper than that. And when we can embrace that, we are that much richer and that much more impactful, I believe, in the
Mhm.
world.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Absolutely.
So I want to ask you, when we're thinking about where we are right now, we are actually in the 101 celebration year of the women's right to vote. We received the right to vote in 1920.
Mhm.
And that was white women received the right to vote in 1920. And Asian Americans, it was in 1954. African Americans, we know, with the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1964.
Mhm.
And then Native Americans, when you're looking at all where discriminatory voting practices was deemed illegal, this wasn't until the 80s.
Mhm.
So, not getting into a political banter, but we know that when we exercise our right to vote, it's basically an extension of our voice. So, would you like
Mhm.
to share a little bit about that and the power of our voice as women?
Luana, thank you. The power of our voice is very strong in our voting. And I will be very transparent. There was time in my life where I was very discouraged and I just felt, you know what? Why bother? Why bother to vote? There was one election in particular, and I was just really discouraged that year. And while I knew I had to vote, I really didn't have the level of confidence in the individual that I was voting for. And I can remember it was pouring down rain that day. And I said to myself, I said, you know what? This rain, I will be with an umbrella. I would have been drenched. And so I said, if it doesn't slow down raining, I'm just not going to go in and vote. And I'm being very transparent because that people are probably like, oh my God, she was really not going to vote. But I felt this burden at that particular time. And everything that you have been talking about, Luana, that's what made me get out of the car. It made me say, no matter what is going on in the world at a given time, my voice and my vote still matters. So guess what? The rain continued to come down hard, and I went in to vote and I got soaked. And even though the candidate that I would have really wanted to vote for did not make it in the primary, but I didn't let that stop me. I didn't let the discouragement and some of the things that were going on. I actually just went in and I was like, you know what? I'm still going to cast my vote. I'm still going to raise my voice. So it's very important that we continue to raise our voices in the vote, because we can march, we can protest. Those are our rights. We can do that. We can write to our political leaders, but your power to make change, especially Luana, in our local elections are really important. So we can have our voice heard in our local elections. So that's my take on voting, is that you may not always be in a place where you're really happy and rock solid, convinced that this is the right person. But you have to kind of look at, well, there's a cliche, the less of the evils. You just kind of got to go through that process, but you have to vote. So I'm glad that I actually got out the car, but I will be transparent to say that there was a time when I was very discouraged. And I know how important it is for us to get past that, step over it, get soaking wet in the rain, and then go in and let your voice be heard through your vote.
Yeah, that's so true. And again, it's us expressing what we want.
Yes.
And when you think about, especially on the local level where the numbers are so critical, that
Yes.
your vote can determine the type of school your children are going to, the level of service that you have from your emergency, your EMTC, your fire departments, all of that, even what types of businesses come in your area are all driven by this. But yet I find that often in our groups of women, we want to stay in the safe conversations. We want to say we're safe and it's easy and we don't want to ruffle any feathers. But going back to this hashtag choose to challenge, that hashtag in and of itself, like I said before, is a rallying cry.
Hmm.
It's a cry for us to challenge, to push the envelope in order to shift that needle of
Hmm.
change.
Absolutely.
So we're almost out of time. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about um, the woman who most influenced you, and then end with one lasting thought that you'd like to leave with the listening audience.
Sure. Thank you. The woman that influenced me most is really my mom. And I'll give you a little insight. My mom did not raise me. My relationship with my mom, I believe I was probably somewhere around 18, maybe 20 years old. I would say probably 20. When I was about 20, that's when the relationship really, really, I'm going to say, took a grounding and a rooting from a whole new place. Because when a parent doesn't raise you and they're not in your life every day, then that makes a huge difference. So I was influenced by some magnificent women. When I say a tribe helped to create what people say see today, I don't I could never speak in pride of any form and say, oh, well, I arrived here. Education didn't get me where I am and the accomplishments. What really got me where I am is God first, but it's the many women whose fingerprints are on my life. And then at 20, my mom. My mom was like that missing whipped cream with the cherry on top. And I would say her influence from then until now has been the most impactful. My mom is an extraordinary woman, and she's 93, still going strong. And her encouragement, her tenacity, her strength, her authenticity, and her helping me to, who once wasn't comfortable being authentic, once wasn't comfortable being Lulu, wasn't comfortable being that airy water type person when I was in an environment that really required fire and earth and type A. I could lean into that, but at my core, my mom was very influential in helping me to understand and know how to be my authentic self and how to lean in to a particular energy when necessary, but also how to make sure that my grounding is coming from a place of true authenticity. So that's my I'm going to say my shiro. And mhm, to leave a lasting thought, I would say we can't we can't slow down. We can't slow down. Now is not the time for us to slow down or put brakes on. We have to go full speed ahead. This is a time for us as women to challenge, to raise our voices, and most importantly, not to compromise when people sort of want to, well, maybe you shouldn't do that, or maybe you shouldn't say that, or maybe you don't want to come across as too political. If that's the gifting, walk in it, own it, operate in it, and let it come forth. Whatever that gifting is, Luana, we all have so much genius, brilliance, and gifting. And I know you know those are Revolution Ascension hashtags, and I love those words, but they're not just words for me, Luana. Women have to know that they're just not cliches or just hashtags. They're reminders of our brilliance, our genius, and all of the gifting that is in each and every one of us. And my last parting words would be own it, walk in it, and move quickly in it.
Lulu, thank you so very much. This has been an amazing conversation. I love the nuggets that were sprinkled throughout. And to our listening audience, you have been here with Jacqueline Lulu Brown, also known fondly as Lulu, on Women's History Month. Hashtag Choose to Challenge. Thank you so much for joining us. And as we always say within Celebrate You, love yourself, embrace yourself, and whatever you do, celebrate you. Good night.